I'm Bob Brill. He's Eric Kramer. Welcome to Kramer and Brill, an NFL fantasy football podcast. Each week, my co-host, former Bears and Lions quarterback Eric Kramer, and myself delve into your fantasy football choices and hopefully help you out on your way to victory. Now, you can find out more by going to our website, kramerandbrill.com, or on my Bob Brill YouTube channel. Recapping how we did last week, well, we were solid on Jalen Hurts and his 380 yards and 3 scores, plus 1 rushing. We're also right on Devonta Adams, 177 and 2 scores. Geno Smith, 3 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson got a win, but it was ugly, barely over 100 yards, no TDs, a pick, and he didn't look good doing it. It may take a few games for the booze to subside on that one.
Well, hard to get Jalen Hurts wrong ever because he's playing great this year. Deshaun Watson hasn't played in 2 years. He's the most repulsed and detested guy in pro football, if you ask me, and that was before last Sunday. And now that he's back on the field, it only reminds people who it was who gave him an all-expense paid, guaranteed for the rest of your life contract, despite all the criminal and detestable acts he's committed. And that's the Cleveland Browns. At the Browns practice facility, they'll still probably play a ring around the rosy with Watson, but the rest of the world is focused on what he has done off of it. And I think that if it was just 2 years, that would be a lot to overcome. The fact that it's everything else means that if you're in that practice facility and one of his teammates or his family or his friends, then you are carrying around a ton of now Deshaun Watson baggage for the very first time in public. And so I think it's going to take a lot more than 1 week to sort of get him on the road to being a fantasy option, which I don't even see happening. I couldn't see recommending him ever because he'd not be a guy I'd want to root for.
True. And the weird thing is that if you're a Cleveland Browns player or you're in the organization or, as you mentioned, family, you're loaded with questions. People, friends of yours, people on the street, people that know you, sponsors, whatever, said, how's this Deshaun Watson working out? How do you feel about having it's like the baggage is just unheard of, I think, more than any.
I agree with you. And here's what bothers me. So the team itself, the owner, the general manager, the head coach, they all decided we'll take him. Great. Mm-hmm. What if you're a player on that team? What if you don't agree with it?
Yeah.
Did you get a voice? Nope. And now here you get to be asked all of these questions every week. He's your quarterback. You got to play with. You don't have a choice. And so that to me is what sucks, is because someone else made this decision that impacts your life that you had no control over for you.
And there's $230 million that he's getting paid that you're not getting a chunk of.
Well, regardless, money aside, the character issue for me is that would be insurmountable. I wouldn't want to be around that guy ever.
Unbelievable. Well, let's move on. The running back side. You love Samaje Perine, and all he did was go for 106. I like Tony Pollard, and his 91 and 2 scores proved me right. Big day for Dallas, 54-19 win over Indy. Wideouts, we both came up huge on the wideouts. Like we both like Watson, we both like Wilson, Metcalf, and McLaurin.
And for me, it's been Burrow. This guy is unbelievable. And especially the whole big thing is now he's 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. Well, he's 3-0 against a lot of people. And this is a great time of year to be on that bandwagon, which is now the Cincinnati Bengals and Burrow. And I just think that, the other guy I'd like to heap praise on here for a minute is Justin Fields. Because here's a guy that wasn't even supposed to play last week, or at least I didn't think he should be. And yet I'm thinking, if at all, after the bye. He comes in before the bye and, again, just does Justin Fields type of stuff, which is rare out there. There's not a lot of people doing. In fact, there's nobody but him doing that. And he's a growing threat in the passing game. And so I think, those two guys kind of stood out to me this week in terms of just offensively. And the other guy I'd throw in there too is Geno Smith. Here's a guy that was, if there's ever been a comeback player of a career, it's Geno Smith. because there was nothing in his career prior to this year that showed he was going to be the guy. And what he's done has been unbelievable. And again, I don't know, offensively at least, put this team on his back last week.
He really has. It's been amazing. It's like everybody kind of forgot about Geno Smith. He was like second, third string for anybody, and all of a sudden, Russell Wilson goes to Denver. Pete Carroll says, "Yeah, okay, we'll do Geno Smith." Bingo! Geno Smith is a top-notch quarterback now.
Right. It was like, well, I guess we'll have to play Geno Smith.
Yeah, exactly. It was injuries. Big injury of the weekend. Jimmy Garoppolo broke his foot, out for the season. That possibly kills the chances of the Niners, who now must rely on Brock Purdy, who was 25 of 37 for 210 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. What do you think of this guy? I mean, he was like on nobody's radar.
And he's like the New England Patriots' young Jimmy Garoppolo, who nobody really knew about. And starter goes down, in that case, Tom Brady, no problem. In comes Brock Purdy in this case, and he looked more confident to me than Jimmy Garoppolo's ever looked. And I think can he do it now, though, when all of the eyes are going to be sort of shined on him this week, leading up to the game? I think so, because he didn't look fazed by anything he stepped into. Remember, it was a December game he stepped into, with all of the expectations that had been being heaped on the 49ers ever since they got Christian McCaffrey. So it's not like he was asleep when all this was happening. And so he knew what he was stepping into, and it looked seamless. That was what was so impressive to me. Yes, he's got a ton of talent around him, but he also looked DBs off. He was in the pocket late, throwing over flat defenders to a guy on the sideline that a lot of other guys, veteran quarterbacks, might have thrown a pick in that same instance. And so I think he does things that are beyond his years. Yes, he's got great talent around him, but I think the most important thing he has around him going for him is Kyle Shanahan, because he's got an unbelievable track record of working with not fantastic quarterbacks. Garoppolo is not, and Garoppolo has never been on anybody's elite quarterback list. And yet it's just a great team that he's got around him offensively, and defensively, they're the best. And so you don't have to do a lot, but he is anyway. And I think that's what was impressive to me this past weekend. And I don't see any reason why it wouldn't continue.
Further big news, the guy you love, Baker Mayfield, got released, and with several teams needing quarterbacks, he might land somewhere. The change came at his request, by the way. Trevor Lawrence injured his foot, Kenneth Walker with an ankle, Lamar Jackson's day-to-day, which gives backup Tyler Huntley a great shot. Now, Huntley's a stud. He went, 23 for 32? What? Let me back that up.
Okay.
We'll start from the top. Further big news, Baker Mayfield gets released, and several teams needed quarterbacks. He might land somewhere, and I know you love this guy. The change came at his request, by the way. Trevor Lawrence injured his foot, Kenneth Walker with an ankle, Lamar Jackson week to week gives his backup Tyler Huntley a great shot. Tyler Huntley's a stud. Went 23 for 32, only 187 and a pick, but he rushed for 41 and a touchdown. I've always liked him, and you don't miss too many steps with him in there. By the way, Mayfield got offered a head coaching job. Lingerie Football League. Seriously. One of the sponsors offered him a head coaching job with the Lingerie Football League. So there you go.
I have a feeling there won't be a team that's going to offer him anything. He probably will be on his couch in a bathrobe watching with the rest of us how the rest of the season plays out.
He has to find a new stadium to come out of, though, and clean the seats and everything.
That could be, the more you can do, they say. Kenneth Walker, to me, of all the names you just mentioned, is the biggest loss. Because along with Geno Smith, the two of them, along with that few receivers in the passing game, had that caddy in Seattle just purring right along. Without him, I'm not sure it's the same team. And regarding Lamar Jackson being out, he's kind of, to me, become the Carson Wentz after the Super Bowl run that Carson Wentz got hurt and wasn't really a part of, but had a big part in them even getting there. When Carson Wentz came back, he's holding the ball forever. Guys aren't getting open. He's still staying with them. He wasn't at all, and hasn't been since the Carson Wentz that happened, other than that 1 year in Philly. That's who now Lamar Jackson is. He's sort of cautiously, or whatever he's doing, he's waiting for people to get open that aren't going to be, like, the progression doesn't work that way. And so that's what I'm seeing out of him. And part of it is because they don't really have anybody other than Mark Andrews on the roster. So I think that Tyler Huntley, as good as he is, has the same options, which are very few, other than himself running or Mark Andrews. And so I think Mark Andrews is still the guy, but I'm not so sure that the change in quarterback Huntley is going to make a big difference.
They just have had so many injuries this year to key players, of skill position players, and it's just it's hard to watch them. I know, and this was his career. This was Jackson's, supposed to be breakout year. I remember saying in the very beginning of the season that he's playing for a contract. He's playing for his $500 million or whatever he's going to get.
Well, and unfortunately, he looks like he's playing for that. Like, he doesn't look like he's just playing the game. It looks like there's something else on his mind, and you can't be efficient doing that.
Yeah. Well, the bye week, we got teams which are on bye this week. There's 6 of them, so that's going to really limit your choices as you prepare your teams. Falcons, Bears, Packers, Colts, Saints, Commanders. That takes a lot of quarterbacks out of the mix as well. And when it comes to key players for the bye weeks and your fantasy teams. Let's go right to Thursday night. The Raiders and Rams, 2 terrible teams with both well under 500. Who would have thought that back in September, right? I like Devontae Adams. I like Josh Jacobs coming off a 144-yard day. And I really like Mac Hollins here. He's become a frequent target for Derek Carr. I can't go with anybody on the Rams at the moment.
Yeah. Of the 2 teams, one is still fighting, and one's kind of packed it in for the holidays, the Rams. I like the Raiders, all of them that you just mentioned. I think Derek Carr is playing very well. Devontae Adams is sort of in a class by himself, along with Justin Jefferson, receiver-wise. And the only guy left to me on the Rams roster who would be worth a start would be Cam Akers, because he's very much, to me, like David Montgomery for the Bears. Like, the guy never quits on a run, and he's going to give you every tough yard out there. He's a red zone threat, and receiving wise and quarterback wise, the Rams don't have much.
Jets and Bills on Sunday. I like Mike White at quarterback, and I really like Garrett Wilson. And Corey Davis got 10 targets last week, so you got to consider him. Put him in there if you have him. The regulars plus James Cook is finally getting his chances for the Bills. Last week, he ran 14 times and caught 6 passes, and that's just what you like to see out of a rookie running back.
Absolutely. And to go back to the Jets and Mike White, they were one Braxton Berrios dropped pass in the end zone away from winning that game against the Vikings. And so Mike White, to me, is on pace to become the second half of the season MVP in the NFL. I know they don't have one of those, but if they did, he'd be getting it. As for the Bills, Allen is finally back to being a good decision maker, and he can be removed from the "but will he get me beat this week" category. And I like you, I love the fact that James Cook now gives Buffalo a legit running threat and an additional receiving one, and opposite Devin Singletary, so that Allen can get sort of back away from that mix and become just the guy that kills you passing the ball.
Browns and Bengals, we'll both hold off with Deshaun Watson for now. I'll stick with the Chubb Hunt pair with Amari Cooper, who got 9 chances last week, even though he only converted on 4. Bengals with Mixon still out. I'm jumping on the P. Ryan bandwagon along with Chase, Higgins, and Burrow, who had another monster week. You don't want to see your quarterback carry the ball 11 times, but he did score.
Unless it's that quarterback, because that guy he doesn't ever get really the credit for being the athlete that he is. He's fast, he's big, he's a good athlete, and he's a good runner. He picks holes well, he gets down when he needs to. I think with that Bengals team, it's amazing to me because Mixon, who's one of the better dual threat running back, or at least running backs in the league, he's out, no problem. Samaje Perine comes in and adds what he does. It's kind of like Joe Burrow or Joe Mixon too. And then you've got Chase out for a while, no problem. In steps T. Higgins, along with Boyd. And I just think, the straw that stirs that drink really is Joe Burrow. And because of everything he gives you from the neck up. He just distributes the ball well. He can get out of He can get out of pressure. He can extend plays. Now you're starting to see these 80 and 90-yard drives out of the Bengals be capped off with touchdowns. And I think that's in large part due to the decision maker back there and the fact that their offensive line has come along now.
Texans and Cowboys sit every Texan, even Pierce, play every Cowboy in a blowout for the Republic of Texas.
I think this could be a blowout. That is until I consider it is an in-state game. And I know the Texans don't have much, but even with Davis Mills out at quarterback, who really hadn't been doing a lot anyway during the year, Pierce still had solid numbers last week against a pretty good Browns defense. And for Dallas, you got Pollard, Lamb, Gallup, Prescott, and Elliott, who are all good starts this week.
If you look at the Vikings and Lions, that's a divisional game. Excuse me. I'm a sit with Cousins this week. I do like Jefferson, of course, and Cook, no matter who's at quarterback. I'm big time on Amon-Ra St. Brown, Goff, and both Swift and Williams. Again, it's one of those two-headed running backs that I think the Lions have figured out now, and they're ready to roll. They had another couple of good weeks.
Yeah, when you're talking about the Vikings and the Jets defense, they played one of the elite teams last week. And so all of their offensive players, their numbers were down, including Cousins and Jefferson and Light. And so, but this week, the Lions defense, as good as their offense has been, their defense has been struggling all season long. And I think that this is where Cousins does come back, and Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and so forth. And so I think it's going to be a great game for both teams. Both offenses are hot, starting with Jared Goff and the Lions and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And as you mentioned, the two-headed monster at running back with Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, who DeAndre actually gives you a big burst, not only in the running game, but an absolute great weapon in the receiving game. And so, yeah, this is going to be a great game, I think. Two great offenses. The Lions, despite the 5-7 record, have won 4 of the last 5 and are one of the hottest teams in the league right now.
Eagles and Giants, big game, big players. So look for Barkley and Hurts to both go off. And I like Daniel Jones here as well. I love both Slayton and A.J. Brown in this one, too. And you can't deny Devonta Smith either. I'm a sit on Miles Sanders, though.
Well, I like all things Jalen Hurts, which includes his production in both the running and passing game. A.J. Brown and Smith are both exceptional weapons on the outside. And I've grown to become a big fantasy football fan of Daniel Jones because not only what he does, he's a great decision maker this year, not huge numbers in the passing game, but does give you a lot in the running game himself. And so I think Barkley, who's probably their best offensive weapon, you still have to play him if you've got him. And I think Slayton also has come on, especially lately, and given them a serious threat on the outside. Not a touchdown machine, but certainly gives you the yards and the receptions.
Ravens and Steelers. Ravens, I'm a go on Huntley, even though he hasn't played much. He's a veteran. He has a lot to prove. And I don't think the Steeler D can stop him. I do like Kenny Pickett here. With so many teams on a bye, if you need a quarterback, he's worth a look, as are Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, and Pat Freiermuth, who has 50 catches on the season. I'm not sure about George Pickens this week. He may get more targets and should after getting only 2 last week and throwing a fit. But I'm not sure I'm set on him this week. The other guys I am.
Thorough breakdown, of course, as always, on the Steelers by you. Good job. As for the Ravens, there's just go back. There's just no one for Huntley to get the ball to. So unless he goes off for 100 yards rushing the ball and a touchdown, which I don't think he's going to do, there's just really nobody there to me. I mean, unless you have, if you would have had Mark Andrews on your team, you would have had to draft him pretty high to get him. So he's worth a play to me, but I don't see anybody else in the Ravens uniform.
Jags and Titans. Jags keep an eye on Lawrence as he's battling an injury, but I love Christian Kirk, and I'm really good on Travis Etienne and Zay Jones. I always get that guy's name mixed up. Titans, it's just Derrick Henry this week. That's as pretty much usual. It's just Derrick Henry.
Fair enough. Well, if Trevor Lawrence can't go, then it would be C.J. Beathard, a veteran, steps in, capable guy. I also love Christian Kirk and Etienne. And then Zay Jones, though, has had one stellar game a couple weeks ago against Baltimore, but has only scored 1 touchdown this season. And so, and for the Titans, as you've said, it's pretty much Derrick Henry. The other guy I would throw in there, though, is Treylon Burks, because to stop Henry, you're going to have to load the box. And Treylon Burks is that guy that get behind him. even though last week he only had one catch for 25 yards, it was for a touchdown, and he has shown the ability to get deep and come down with the ball. He's a big body receiver, and I think with Tannehill throwing the ball, that's what we're going to see. A lot of Derrick Henry running the ball, and Treylon Burks over the top.
Chiefs and Broncos, you can't miss with many here, but Pacheco's solid for sure, along with Mahomes and Kelsey. Broncos, I like Greg Dulcich at receiver. And again, Jerry Jeudy. But Cortland Sutton is battling an injury, and Latavius Murray is kind of up and down. So I'm not so sure about him.
Yeah, for the Chiefs, I also like MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's a lanky guy. He's been a consistent second receiving option behind Kelsey. He's also got the speed to get down the field, which caught a big 40-plus yard reception last week. And so I think he gives Mahomes that down the field option. And then when you flip over to the Broncos, Wilson has kind of turned into a backup quarterback type fantasy quarterback right now, at least every game this year. And which really, for me, removes all receivers and all running backs. But like you, if I had to play a tight end, if I had one down that was out this week on a bye, Greg Dulcich would be a good backup.
Panthers and Seahawks. Panthers coming off a bye, but I like Donta Foreman. While for Seattle, I think Metcalf and Smith are finally a great combo. Love them both. I definitely like Tyler Lockett, but more of a flex, not a receiver one, because I think that receiver one goes to Metcalf now.
Well, in Carolina, the only player now is Donta Foreman, like you pointed out, and because that entire ship is taken on water. For Seattle, I know you love Metcalf, and he's a great player, and he's growing.
2 real good weeks in a row now.
He has, but when I look at who's been the guy there for all these years, it's really been Tyler Lockett, and it still is going to be. He obviously has a connection, and Geno Smith has relied heavily on him. Pretty much every third down pass goes to him. And I think, they're going to create for Tyler Lockett, but I'm sorry, for Metcalf, because he is such a big body downfield threat. But Tyler Lockett is the guy that's the go-to guy there. And with Geno Smith delivering accurate throws, and with Kenneth Walker now out, I think Tyler Lockett gets a lot of those passes.
Buccaneers and Niners. Well, the Bucs played on Monday night, and it was a comeback game, another one for Tom Brady. So he's still got some left in the tank. I'm not so sure I'd start him. The main guy I'd stick with there is Godwin. Chris Godwin had 2 weeks ago, had a major day, had an okay day, but I think he is still the main guy there that I would, as far as picking a guy on that team to start. And the Niners, they're good with Purdy, McCaffrey, and Samuel, a couple other guys, but those guys are definites.
Yeah, I agree with you when it comes to Chris Godwin, because at the end of the game, he caught that touchdown pass. It just got called back for offensive holding on the left tackle. But when it comes to the Buccaneers, right, they just don't have it. I mean, they got old fast. They have become sort of, I know they're winning the weakest division in football right now, but offensively, in terms of fantasy, there's just nothing there. When you switch over to the Niners, though, now you got, again, Brock Purdy's come on, playing confidently, and I know it's been a short sample size of mostly one game. But I think I'd also add in there George Kittle, because he caught a nice pass over the middle. And as we all know, a great quarterback is a young quarterback. Great tight end is a young quarterback's best friend. George Kittle is a special tight end as they go. And I think the guy you can't forget about is Brandon Ayuk. All season long, he's been there. And will continue to be. And I think Purdy is going to have to rely on some of these veteran guys around him, and showing that he will.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Godwin almost touchdown, because last night we were watching the game. We're recording this on Tuesday. Last night we were watching the game, and I was with my wife, and we're both in the same fantasy league. And to win that game, win her game this week, and to stay in the hunt for a playoff position, she needed a touchdown catch from Godwin in the last minute or so. She was off the floor with the touchdown.
3 seconds.
Yeah. And then the yellow thing came about the flag. It was like, oh no. She ended up losing the game and pretty much out of the playoff hunt at this point. So, but it was like, you talk about the highs and lows and you deal with fantasy. It's just
like
amazing.
That, right?
Dolphins and Chargers, Tyreek Hill is a go, but Tua is fighting an injury, so keep an eye on that. And the Bolts, I'd start Herbert, Eckler, and it looks like Keenan Allen is back strong, and Palmer and Everett are both good plays.
Yeah, against the 49ers, the Dolphins abandoned their running game for some reason early, which I think was a mistake. And so this week I expect a ton of the speedy Jeff Wilson back in the mix. Hill, as you mentioned, is phenomenal. But I think the other forgotten guy was Jalen Waddle. And he came out of that game with 1 catch for 9 yards. So I think for them to be effective, no matter who's playing quarterback, they've got to get both of those guys back in the mix. And I think you're right. With the Chargers, they're kind of revived, and the guy that has been the most so has been Justin Herbert. Shows no signs anymore of playing with an injury. Went off last week. No reason he shouldn't do that again this week. And obviously the big names around him are Eckler and Allen and Palmer, which you figure will go off again.
Monday night, Patriots and Cardinals. Arizona coming off a bye, so look for Connor and Hopkins to have decent games with the rest. But Rondell Moore, Ertz, and Dortch are out. New England, Mac Jones has come alive, so he's worth certainly a look, and Ramondre Stevenson is worth a play. But Jacoby Myers is also fighting an injury, so look for Nelson Aguilar to step up here.
Great matchup for New England against Arizona, even after their bye. As you mentioned, Mac Jones has definitely stepped it up lately. Stevenson is still a solid runner. In fact, even adds a little bit as an outlet in the passing game. But as you mentioned, Jacoby Myers is back, or not. He's back, but playing, but not at full strength. And so therefore, it would be tough for me to start Mac Jones because there's really no options for him in the passing game. And then as far as the Cardinals go, again, it's Connor and DeAndre Hopkins are about the only solid week-to-week options that they have.
And there you have it, another edition of Kramer and Brill. Find out more by going to our website, kramerandbrill.com, or on my Bob Brill YouTube channel. For my friend and colleague Eric Kramer, I'm Bob Brill. See you next time.